"Mom, you need to leave. Right now. Before the ceremony starts." Those words came from my own daughter, Sarah, while I was sitting in the third row of her wedding venue. The venue I had paid for. Wearing the dress I'd bought specifically for this day. Holding the handkerchief I'd been saving for happy tears. And my daughter, my only child, the girl I'd raised alone for 24 years, was telling me to get out. Her future mother-in-law, Patricia, was standing right behind her with this smug smile on her face. Like she'd won something. Like getting rid of me was some kind of prize. But what neither of them knew was that I had already set things in motion. Things that would change everything. Because 6 months earlier, when I first realized what was happening, I'd made a decision. I wasn't going to be the victim in this story. I was going to be the winner. And by the end of that wedding day, everyone would know exactly what kind of people had tried to push me out. I'm Linda Chen. I'm 47 years old. And this is the story of how my daughter tried to erase me from her life to impress her wealthy in-laws, and how I made sure that backfired in the most spectacular way possible. Sarah is my only child. I had her when I was 23. Her father left when she was 2 years old. Just walked out one day and never came back. No child support, no calls, no birthday cards, nothing. So it was just me and Sarah against the world, and I did everything I could to give her a good life. I worked as a nurse, 12-hour shifts, night shifts, double shifts when I needed extra money. I sacrificed everything for Sarah. Didn't date because I wanted to focus on being a good mom. Didn't take vacations because I was saving for her college fund. Didn't buy myself nice things because Sarah needed dance classes and summer camps and a good education. We were close when she was young. Best friends. We did everything together. Movie nights every Friday. Baking cookies on weekends. Long talks about her dreams and fears. She'd tell me everything. Her crushes at school, her friend drama, her hopes for the future. I knew her inside and out, or at least I thought I did. She went to college on a partial scholarship. I covered the rest with my savings and some loans. She studied business, did well, got good grades. I was so proud of her. My baby girl, the first person in our family to get a college degree. She graduated and got a job at a marketing firm in the city. Started making decent money. Moved into her own apartment. Was building a life. I thought things were going great. We still talked regularly. She'd come home for Sunday dinners. We'd watch our favorite shows together. Share stories about our weeks. It wasn't quite like when she lived with me, but it was good. We were still close, still had that bond. Then 2 years ago, she met Brandon at some work event. He worked in finance. Made a lot of money, came from a wealthy family. His parents owned a chain of car dealerships across 3 states. They had money, real money, the kind of money I'd never seen in my life. Sarah was over the moon. Called me so excited about this new guy, how charming he was, how successful. How ambitious, how he took her to fancy restaurants and bought her expensive gifts, how different he was from the guys she usually dated. I was happy for her. My daughter had found someone who treated her well. That's all any mother wants. But then I met Brandon, and more importantly, I met his parents, Patricia and Richard Morrison. The meeting was at their house, this massive place in the suburbs. Like something from a magazine. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, original art on the walls, a maid who brought us drinks. It was intimidating. I felt out of place immediately in my Target dress, and my 10-year-old car parked behind their 3 Mercedes in the driveway. Patricia greeted me with this cold handshake, looking me up and down, clearly judging everything about me. My clothes, my hair, my shoes, everything. Richard was polite but distant. Like I was some kind of business meeting he had to get through. They asked about my job, my background, where I lived, all the questions designed to figure out my net worth and social status, and I could see them calculating. deciding I wasn't good enough, that I didn't measure up to their standards. Sarah seemed nervous during that dinner, trying too hard to impress them, laughing at their jokes that weren't funny, agreeing with everything they said, being someone I didn't quite recognize. And I realized what was happening. She was ashamed of me, not overtly, not openly, but in little ways. The way she glossed over what I did for a living, the way she changed the subject when Patricia asked about my house, the way she didn't mention it was just the two of us growing up, like she was hiding parts of her life, hiding me. After that dinner, things started to change. Sarah called less, canceled Sunday dinners, said she was busy with work and spending time with Brandon's family. When we did talk, she seemed different, more focused on money and status, talking about designer brands and expensive vacations, things that had never mattered to her before. She was becoming someone else, someone who fit into the Morrison family, someone who wasn't quite my Sarah anymore. Then Brandon proposed. Called me after it happened. Sarah was crying happy tears in the background, showing him the ring. A massive diamond that probably cost more than my car. They were getting married. My baby girl was getting married, and I was thrilled, emotional, ready to help plan the wedding of her dreams. That's when things got weird. Sarah started talking about the wedding. But it was clear the Morrisons were running the show. Patricia had opinions about everything: the venue, the date, the guest list, the flowers, everything. And Sarah just went along with it. Let them take over. Let Patricia plan what should have been Sarah's day. Mom, Patricia has such good taste. She knows all the best vendors. She's planned so many events. It just makes sense to let her handle things. But Sarah, this is your wedding. Don't you want to make the decisions? I am making decisions. I'm deciding to trust Patricia's expertise. She knows what she's doing. I tried to be involved, offered to help, asked about bridesmaid dresses and flower arrangements and all the things mothers traditionally help with. But every suggestion was shot down. Patricia had already decided, already booked vendors, already chosen everything. And Sarah just nodded along. Let it happen. Let her future mother-in-law plan her entire wedding. The few times I pushed back, Sarah got annoyed. Mom, why are you making this difficult? Patricia is being so generous. She's paying for everything. The least we can do is let her have input. Paying for everything. That was the key. Patricia was writing the checks. So, Patricia got to make the decisions. And I, who'd spent 24 years raising Sarah alone, who'd sacrificed everything to give her opportunities, was expected to sit quietly and be grateful. I was invited at all. Then came the dress shopping. Patricia organized it, invited Sarah's friends and Brandon's sister and cousins. I was invited too, but it was clear I was an afterthought. We went to this expensive bridal boutique, the kind of place where dresses start at $5,000. Sarah tried on dress after dress, each one more beautiful than the last. Patricia had opinions about all of them. Too much lace, not enough structure, wrong neckline, on and on. Finally, Sarah found one she loved. Strapless, fitted, covered in delicate beading. She looked gorgeous, like a princess. My baby girl. I started crying. Couldn't help it. Sarah saw me and smiled. For a moment, it felt like us again. Mother and daughter sharing this special moment. Then Patricia spoke. It's lovely, Sarah, but I wonder if we should keep looking. I saw another boutique downtown, with more options, more unique pieces. We want you to look perfect. Sarah's face fell. I really love this one, though. Of course, but let's not rush. This is the most important dress you'll ever wear. We should explore all options. Sarah nodded, took off the dress. We left without buying anything. And I realized what was happening. Patricia would never approve of any dress Sarah chose herself. Because this wasn't about finding the perfect dress. This was about control. About making sure Sarah knew who was in charge. Over the next few months, things got worse. I was left out of more and more planning meetings, told decisions had already been made. Informed rather than consulted, the wedding was taking shape. A huge event at an expensive country club, 200 guests, live band, sit-down dinner, open bar, everything top tier, everything expensive. Everything designed to show off the Morrison family wealth. My role kept shrinking. I wasn't asked to help choose bridesmaid dresses. Wasn't consulted about the menu. Wasn't included in decisions about flowers or decorations or music. I was just expected to show up, smile, play my part as the mother of the bride. But only when it was convenient, only when Patricia allowed it. Sarah seemed oblivious to how I was being treated. Or maybe she just didn't care. She was so caught up in wedding planning and being part of the Morrison family that she didn't notice her own mother was being pushed aside. And the few times I tried to bring it up, she'd get defensive. "Mom, you're being oversensitive. Patricia is just trying to help. She's been so generous. Why can't you just be grateful?" Grateful, that word again. Like I should be thankful for being allowed to attend my own daughter's wedding. Like I should bow down to Patricia Morrison for having money and connections. Like I hadn't spent 24 years working myself to exhaustion to raise Sarah alone. Like all that meant nothing compared to Patricia's checkbook. 4 months before the wedding, I got a call from Sarah. She sounded nervous, said she needed to talk to me about something important. My heart sank. I knew whatever she was about to say would be bad. "Mom, there's been a change with the wedding seating. Patricia and Richard have a lot of business associates and family friends they need to invite. So we've had to make some adjustments to the guest list and seating arrangements." "Okay, what does that mean for me?" Long pause. "You're going to be at a table in the back, near the kitchen. I'm really sorry, but with so many VIP guests, we need the front tables for people who are important to the Morrisons' business and social circles." I couldn't breathe. Near the kitchen. At my own daughter's wedding. The mother of the bride relegated to the worst table in the room so Patricia could impress her rich friends. "Sarah, I'm your mother. I should be at the family table. Up front. I know, and I wish it could be different. But this is just how it has to be. Patricia has been so generous paying for everything. We have to make accommodations. Sarah, this is your wedding. Don't you have any say in where your own mother sits? Mom, please don't make this harder than it already is. It's just a seat. It doesn't change anything about the day. But it did change everything. It showed me exactly how much I mattered. Exactly how little my role as Sarah's mother meant compared to Patricia's money and status. I was being pushed out, erased, made invisible. At my own daughter's wedding, I hung up and cried for an hour. Then I got angry, really angry, because I'd given up everything for Sarah. Worked myself to the bone, sacrificed my entire adult life to make sure she had opportunities. And this was how she repaid me? By letting Patricia Morrison treat me like garbage? By choosing money and status over her own mother? That's when I made a decision. I wasn't going down without a fight. If Patricia and Sarah wanted to push me out, fine, but they were going to regret it. I wasn't going to be the sad, pathetic mother crying in the back corner. I was going to take control of this situation. I was going to show everyone exactly who was responsible for Sarah's success. And I was going to make sure the Morrisons understood they couldn't just erase me. I started documenting everything. Every text message where I was excluded from planning. Every phone call where Sarah dismissed my input. Every email from Patricia that copied me on decisions already made without my consultation. I saved it all. Built a file. Evidence of exactly how I'd been treated. I also started making phone calls. To people I knew from the hospital, from Sarah's school days, from our neighborhood. Quiet conversations about my situation, about what was happening, building sympathy, building support, making sure people knew what the Morrisons were really like behind their wealthy exterior. Then, 3 months before the wedding, I did something bold. I hired a private investigator, someone to look into the Morrison family, into their businesses, their finances, their reputation. I wanted to know everything about them, because if they were going to treat me like I was beneath them, I wanted to understand exactly who they thought they were. The PI came back with interesting information. The Morrison dealerships were struggling. They'd overextended, opened too many locations, took on too much debt. They looked rich, acted rich, but they were actually in serious financial trouble. The fancy house was heavily mortgaged. The cars were leased. They were living way beyond their means, keeping up appearances while drowning in debt. Even better, Richard Morrison had a reputation in business circles. Not a good one. Known for being ruthless, for cheating partners, for cutting corners. Several lawsuits over the years. Settlements paid quietly to make problems go away. He wasn't the respectable businessman he pretended to be. He was a con artist in an expensive suit. And Patricia? She'd been married before. To a man who owned a restaurant chain, divorced him, and took half his money in the settlement. Then married Richard 6 months later. She was a gold digger who'd moved up the social ladder by targeting successful men. Her whole persona was an act. She wasn't old money or classy. She was calculating and manipulative. I had ammunition now. Information that could destroy their reputation if it came out. But I wasn't going to use it right away. I was going to wait. Let them think they'd won. Let them have their fancy wedding with me pushed to the side, and then, at exactly the right moment, I was going to strike. 2 months before the wedding, Sarah called with more bad news. "Mom, there's been another change. Patricia thinks it would be better if you didn't walk down the aisle as mother of the bride. She says it might take attention away from the bridal party. So we're just going to have you already, seated when the ceremony starts. Not walking down the aisle. At my own daughter's wedding, the traditional moment where the mother of the bride is honored. Taken away because Patricia thought I'd be a distraction, because she didn't want anyone paying attention to me, didn't want anyone remembering I existed. Sarah, you're seriously okay with this? It's not about being okay with it. It's about keeping the peace. Patricia has very specific ideas about how she wants the wedding to look. And honestly, Mom, it's easier to just go along with it. I don't want drama on my wedding day. But erasing your mother isn't drama. You're not being erased. You'll be there, in the audience, supporting me. That's what matters." She didn't get it, didn't understand what she was doing. Or maybe she did and just didn't care. Either way, I was done trying to reason with her, done trying to make her see how wrong this was. I was going to let the wedding happen exactly as Patricia wanted it, and then I was going to make my move. 1 month before the wedding, I got the final insult. An email from Patricia. Not even a phone call. An email. Explaining that the mother of the bride dress I'd bought didn't fit the wedding's color scheme. She'd taken the liberty of ordering me a different dress, in the right color. It would be delivered to my house. I just needed to wear it on the wedding day. The dress arrived a week later. It was beige, shapeless, looked like something you'd buy at a retirement home gift shop. Clearly chosen to make me look old and frumpy and invisible. While Patricia would be wearing a designer gown in the wedding colors, looking like a queen. I was supposed to fade into the wallpaper. Be present, but not noticed. Fill a seat, but not matter. I hung that ugly dress in my closet, stared at it every day, let my anger build, let my determination grow. Because that dress represented everything that had happened, every insult, every dismissal, every moment of being. Treated like I didn't matter, and I was going to use that anger, channel it into my plan. The day before the wedding, I went to the bank, withdrew $10,000 in cash from my savings. Money I'd been putting away for years, rainy day money, Emergency money. I'd never touched it, but tomorrow I was going to need it. For what I had planned, I also made some final phone calls to people who mattered, setting pieces in motion, making sure everything would be ready for tomorrow. One of those calls was to the venue coordinator at the country club, a woman named Jessica who I'd gotten to know through subtle conversations over the past few months. She didn't like Patricia either. Nobody who worked with Patricia liked her. She was rude to service staff, demanding, condescending, the kind of person who treats servers like they're invisible. Jessica, I need a favor. A big one. Are you willing to help me? What kind of favor? The kind that requires you to be brave, to stand up to Patricia Morrison, to help me show everyone who she really is. Jessica laughed. I've been waiting for someone to put that woman in her place. What do you need? I explained my plan. The timing, what I needed her to do. She agreed immediately, said she'd make it happen, said half the staff would be thrilled to see Patricia get what she deserved. The morning of the wedding, I woke up early, made myself a good breakfast, did my hair and makeup carefully. Not with the ugly beige dress Patricia had sent. I'd bought my own dress. A beautiful dress in deep red. Fitted, elegant, expensive. The kind of dress that would stand out. The kind that would make people notice me. Patricia wanted me invisible? Too bad. I was going to be the most visible person at that wedding besides the bride. I arrived at the country club 2 hours before the ceremony. Early. On purpose. I wanted to be there. Wanted to watch everything unfold. Wanted to see Patricia's face when things started going wrong. The venue looked beautiful. Flowers everywhere. White chairs set up in perfect rows. An arch covered in roses for the ceremony. Tables set with fancy linens and crystal glasses for the reception. Patricia had spared no expense. This was her show. Her moment to prove the Morrisons were important, wealthy, connected. I checked in with Jessica. She gave me a subtle nod. Everything was set. My plan was ready to go. I just needed to wait for the right moments. Let the day unfold. Let Patricia think she'd won, and then reveal what I'd been preparing for months. Guests started arriving. Patricia was in full hostess mode. Greeting people, air kissing, showing off the venue, introducing herself as practically the bride's mother, making sure everyone knew she'd planned everything. She saw me in my red dress and her face went tight. She didn't like that I stood out, didn't like that I looked good. But she couldn't say anything, not with guests around. She just shot me a cold look and turned away. Sarah was getting ready in the bridal suite. I wasn't invited there, wasn't part of the getting ready photos or the pre-wedding champagne toast. I was expected to sit with the other guests and wait. Like I was just another attendee, not the woman who'd raised the bride alone for 24 years. But I didn't care. My moment was coming. 30 minutes before the ceremony was supposed to start, Patricia found me sitting in the third row, right where I'd been assigned. The worst seat in the family section. If you could even call it that. She walked up to me with this fake smile, the kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. Linda, I'm so glad you're here. Sarah will be happy to see you. I wouldn't miss my daughter's wedding. Of course. Though I have to say, that dress is quite bold. Red at a wedding? Some might consider that inappropriate. Some might. I think it's perfect. Her smile got colder. Well, I suppose we all have different tastes. Speaking of which, the dress I sent you was specifically chosen to complement the wedding colors. This red rather clashes. I'm aware. That was intentional. She didn't like that, didn't like my confidence, didn't like that I wasn't cowering anymore. Linda, I hope you're not planning to cause any problems today. This is Sarah's special day. She deserves for everything to be perfect. I completely agree. Sarah deserves everything to be perfect, which is why I've spent the past few months making sure of that. Patricia's eyes narrowed. She sensed something but couldn't quite figure out what. What do you mean? You'll see. Soon enough. She opened her mouth to respond, but before she could, her phone rang. She glanced at it, frowned, answered it. What? That's impossible. I personally confirmed everything with them yesterday. Well, fix it. She hung up, looked flustered, hurried off toward the venue coordinator's office. I smiled. It was starting. What Patricia didn't know was that I'd paid the photographer $2,000 to cancel. Made it look like a scheduling error, like he'd double booked and couldn't make it. Patricia had spent weeks interviewing photographers, chosen the most expensive one. Someone who regularly shot weddings for wealthy families. Someone who would make the Morrison wedding look prestigious and important. And now, an hour before the ceremony, he was gone. Patricia rushed back out 5 minutes later. Her face was red, stressed. She grabbed one of Brandon's groomsmen, sent him to find a backup photographer. Any photographer. Someone who could at least capture the basics. But it was Saturday afternoon in wedding season. Every good photographer was already booked. The best they could do was some kid with a decent camera who shot family portraits on weekends. Not the prestigious professional Patricia had wanted. Not the photos that would prove the Morrisons through the perfect wedding. I watched Patricia scramble. Watched her perfect day start to crack. And I felt no guilt. Only satisfaction. 20 minutes before the ceremony, the next problem hit. The flowers. The elaborate arrangements that Patricia had spent hours planning. The roses and orchids and exotic blooms that cost thousands of dollars. Half of them hadn't arrived. The delivery truck had supposedly broken down, would be delayed at least 2 hours, maybe longer. Patricia was panicking now, yelling at the florist on the phone, demanding they fix it immediately. But there was nothing they could do. The flowers were stuck. The ceremony would have to happen with half the decorations missing, with empty spaces where impressive arrangements were supposed to be. Another crack in Patricia's perfect facade. I'd paid the florist $3,000 to delay the delivery. Told them to blame it on a truck breakdown. They'd been happy to comply. Apparently, Patricia had been a nightmare to work with. Changing orders constantly, complaining about prices, treating the florist like servants. They were thrilled to participate in taking her down a notch. Then came the biggest hit. 10 minutes before the ceremony was supposed to start, Jessica, the venue coordinator, approached Patricia, looking genuinely upset. There'd been a problem with the catering company, a mix-up with the order. They'd prepared food for a party of 150, but the guest list was 200. They didn't have enough food for everyone. They could supplement with additional dishes, but it wouldn't be what Patricia had ordered. It wouldn't be the carefully curated menu she'd spent weeks perfecting. Patricia lost it, started screaming at Jessica, demanding answers, threatening to sue, making a scene in front of arriving guests, showing everyone her true colors, the entitled, nasty person she really was under the polished exterior. Guests were staring, whispering. Some looked uncomfortable. This wasn't the elegant, sophisticated event they'd been expecting. This was chaos. I'd paid the caterer $5,000 to mess up the order, to claim they'd been given the wrong head count. It was the biggest chunk of my savings, but worth every penny. Because food was Patricia's main concern. She'd planned this elaborate menu to impress her guests, to show off. And now it was ruined. The ceremony finally started 15 minutes late. Patricia was flustered, sweating through her expensive dress, her makeup starting to run. She tried to compose herself, put on a smile, but everyone could see she was stressed, could see the cracks. Sarah looked beautiful walking down the aisle. My daughter, in her expensive dress, smiling at Brandon, completely unaware of the disasters happening around her, or maybe aware but too focused on getting married to care. Either way, she looked happy. And despite everything, I was happy for her. She was my daughter. I loved her, even if she'd let Patricia push me aside. The ceremony itself was lovely. Traditional vows, a string quartet playing, readings from Shakespeare and Elizabeth Barrett Browning. Everything Patricia had planned. This part went perfectly because I hadn't interfered with it. I wanted Sarah's actual wedding to be beautiful, wanted that memory to be unspoiled. My issue wasn't with Sarah getting married. It was with how I'd been treated, and that reckoning was coming at the reception. After the ceremony, guests moved to the reception hall. The room was beautiful despite the missing flowers. Round tables with white linens, string lights overhead, a band setting up in the corner. It looked expensive, impressive, exactly what Patricia wanted. I took my seat, table 18, near the kitchen, far from the head table where Sarah and Brandon sat with their wedding party, far from the family tables up front where the Morrisons held court. I was hidden away, exactly where Patricia wanted me, but I could see everything from my spot, could watch Patricia work the room, greeting guests, accepting compliments on the wedding, playing the role of proud almost mother-in-law, pretending the disasters earlier hadn't happened, trying to salvage her reputation. Dinner was served, the supplemented menu that wasn't what Patricia had planned. Guests ate politely, but I could hear whispers. Comments about the food not being quite right, about things seeming a bit off, about this not being up to Morrison's standards. Patricia's smile got tighter with each whispered comment she overheard. Then came the toasts. Brandon's father Richard went first, gave a boring speech about family and commitment and building a future together. All generic platitudes, nothing personal or meaningful. Then Patricia stood up. I just want to say how blessed we are to welcome Sarah into our family. From the moment Brandon brought her home, I knew she was special. Smart, ambitious, beautiful. Everything we could want for our son. And I'm so proud to have had a hand in planning this perfect day for them. This is just the beginning of their beautiful future together. Perfect day. She actually called it perfect, after everything that had gone wrong. And she took credit for the whole wedding. Didn't mention Sarah's input. Certainly didn't mention me. Didn't acknowledge that Sarah had a mother who'd raised her alone. I was erased completely, invisible. I waited for someone to toast me, to acknowledge the mother of the bride, but no one did. Not Sarah, not Brandon, not anyone in the wedding party. The toasts ended. Patricia sat down looking smug, like she'd won, like she'd successfully made this wedding all about the Morrisons. That's when I stood up, picked up my champagne glass, and without asking permission or being invited, I started to speak. If I could have everyone's attention for just a moment. The room went quiet. People turned to look at me. Patricia's face went white. Sarah looked panicked. But I had the microphone now. Jessica had made sure I'd have access to the sound system. This was my moment. For those who don't know me, I'm Linda Chen, Sarah's mother. I know I wasn't included in the official toasts. Wasn't asked to speak. But there are some things I need to say. Some things everyone here should know. Patricia stood up. Linda, this isn't appropriate. This isn't your time to speak. Actually, Patricia, I think it is, because I'm the mother of the bride. And for the past year, you've done everything possible to erase me from my daughter's life, from this wedding. So I'm going to take a few minutes to remind everyone that I exist. And to share some truths about how we got here. Sarah was crying now. Mom, please don't do this. But I was done being silenced, done being pushed aside. Sarah, I raised you alone from the time you were 2 years old. Your father left and I worked 3 jobs to make sure you had everything you needed. I sacrificed my entire adult life for you. Didn't date. Didn't take vacations. Didn't buy myself anything nice. Everything went to you. Your education, your opportunities, your future. I pulled out a folder from my Roddy, bag. I have receipts here, documenting every dollar I spent on Sarah over 24 years. Every tuition payment, every dance class, every medical bill, every single expense. It totals over $300,000. $300,000 that I earned working night shifts as a nurse. Money I gladly spent because Sarah is my daughter and I wanted her to succeed. The room was silent, everyone staring. Patricia looked furious. Sarah was sobbing into Brandon's shoulder. But I wasn't done. Patricia Morrison has spent this entire year trying to erase me. She didn't want me involved in wedding planning. Didn't want me in the family photos. Seated me at a table near the kitchen while her business associates got the good seats. She even tried to dictate what dress I could wear. All because I'm not wealthy. Because I don't fit into her idea of what Sarah's family should look like. I turned to look at Patricia directly. But here's what Patricia doesn't want anyone to know. The Morrison family isn't as wealthy as they pretend. Their dealerships are failing. They're drowning in debt. This wedding? It's being paid for with money they don't have. They're keeping up appearances while everything crumbles behind the scenes. Gasps around the room. Richard stood up, red-faced. That's slander. Those are lies. Actually, it's all documented. Public records, court filings, financial statements. I have a private investigator's report if anyone wants to see it. I held up another folder. The Morrisons are con artists in expensive clothes. And they've spent the past year treating me like garbage because they're terrified someone might see through their act. The room erupted, people talking over each other, some looking shocked, some looking scandalized. Patricia was yelling at me to sit down. Richard was yelling at the coordinator to cut my microphone. Sarah was crying hysterically, but I kept going. Because I'd been silent for too long. Sarah, I love you. I will always love you. But you've let these people turn you into someone I don't recognize. Someone who values money and status over family. Over the mother who gave up everything for you. And I hope someday you'll realize what you've done, what you've given up to impress people who aren't worth impressing. I set down the microphone. Walked out of the reception hall. Left through the main doors of the country club. Got in my car and drove away. Left behind the disaster of the wedding, the shocked guests, the destroyed reputations. The reality that I'd just blown up my daughter's wedding to make a point. Was it petty? Yes. Was it vindictive? Absolutely. But was it satisfying? More than I can describe. Because for the first time in a year, I'd had power. I'd had control. I'd shown everyone what the Morrisons really were. And I'd made sure Sarah understood that erasing your mother has consequences. I drove home, changed out of my red dress, made myself some tea, sat in my quiet house processing what I'd done. No regrets, none. They'd tried to push me out, make me invisible, treat me like I didn't matter. And I'd showed them exactly why that was a mistake. My phone started ringing around midnight, Sarah calling. I didn't answer. She called again and again, left voicemails crying and yelling and demanding I call her back. I deleted them all without listening. She showed up at my house the next morning, still in her wedding dress, makeup smeared from crying, looking exhausted and devastated. I let her in because she was still my daughter, but I didn't apologize. Mom, how could you? How could you ruin my wedding like that? I didn't ruin your wedding, Sarah. I just told the truth. About how I've been treated. About who the Morrisons really are. You humiliated me. In front of everyone. Everyone we know was there. Everyone saw. Yes, they did. They saw a mother who's been pushed aside and erased finally standing up for herself. They saw the truth about your precious in-laws. And they saw you choose money and status over your own mother. She started crying again. I never meant for it to be like this. Patricia just had such strong opinions about everything. And she was paying for it all. I felt like I had to go along with it. You had to. Sarah, you're 24 years old. You're not a child. You made choices. You chose to let Patricia push me out. Chose to seat me near the kitchen. Chose not to include me in the family photos or the toasts. Those were your choices. I was trying to keep everyone happy. Everyone except me. She had no response to that, because it was true. She'd prioritized everyone else. The Morrisons, Brandon's family, her new social circle. Everyone except the woman who'd raised her. We sat in silence for a while. Finally, Sarah spoke quietly. Brandon's parents are threatening to sue you for defamation. Let them. Everything I said is true and documented. Their lawyers will tell them they don't have a case. They're furious. I'm sure. They are. Their reputation is destroyed. Everyone at that wedding now knows they're frauds. That's not my problem. Brandon's upset too. Says you disrespected his family. I told the truth about his family. If he considers that disrespect, maybe you should think about what that says about him. Sarah stood up. I need to go. Brandon and I are leaving for our honeymoon this afternoon. But when we get back, we need to talk. Figure out how to move forward from this. If you want to move forward, you need to apologize. To me. For how I've been treated. For letting Patricia erase me. For choosing money over your mother. You're the one who owes me an apology. You ruined my wedding. No, Sarah. I won't apologize for standing up for myself. For demanding respect. For refusing to be invisible. If you can't understand why what you did was wrong, then we have nothing to talk about. She left, drove away still in her wedding dress, and I didn't hear from her for 3 weeks. 3 weeks of silence. No calls, no texts, nothing. Part of me was heartbroken. My only daughter wasn't speaking to me, but another part of me felt free. Like I'd been carrying this weight for so long and finally put it down. During those 3 weeks, I got calls from other people who'd been at the wedding. Some were supportive. Said they'd always thought Patricia was awful and were glad someone finally called her out. Said they respected me for standing up for myself. One of Sarah's old friends from high school even called to tell me that Sarah had been changing for a while, becoming more materialistic, more focused on image, that she wasn't the same person anymore. I also got some nasty calls. From Morrison, family, friends, from people who thought I'd been inappropriate and classless, who said a mother should never do what I did, that I'd crossed a line. I hung up on those calls, didn't engage, because I knew they were wrong. A mother shouldn't be erased from her daughter's life, shouldn't be treated like she doesn't matter. And when that happens, a mother has every right to fight back. The story spread beyond just the wedding guests. In the age of social media, everything gets out. People had recorded parts of my speech, posted about it online. It became a whole thing, a viral moment. People debating whether I'd been right or wrong, whether my actions were justified or cruel. I didn't engage with any of it. Stayed off social media, let people say what they wanted. What I didn't expect was the support. The messages from other mothers who'd been through similar situations, who'd been pushed aside by wealthy in-laws, who'd watched their children change and become people they didn't recognize, who understood exactly what I'd been feeling. Dozens of messages from women saying, "I wish I'd had your courage," or "You did what I always wanted to do but couldn't." That support meant more than I expected. Made me realize I wasn't alone, that this wasn't just my story. It was a story lots of mothers lived, being taken for granted, being erased, being treated like the sacrifices they made didn't matter once their kids moved up in the world. 3 weeks after the wedding, Sarah called, asked if she could come over. I said yes. She showed up looking tired, thinner, like she hadn't been sleeping well. We sat in my living room, the same room where I'd helped her with homework, where we'd watched movies together, where we'd spent countless hours just being mother and daughter. I talked to a therapist. She started. Brandon suggested it. Said we needed help processing everything that happened, and the therapist helped me see some things I didn't want to see. I waited. Let her continue. I've been so focused on fitting into Brandon's world that I lost sight of who I am, where I came from, what really matters. Patricia made me feel like my background was something to be ashamed of. Like you were something to be ashamed of. And I believed her. I let her convince me that being wealthy and impressive was more important than being authentic. Tears started running down her face. And I'm so sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry for how I treated you. For letting Patricia push you aside, for not standing up for you, for being ashamed of where I came from. You sacrificed everything for me, and I repaid you by trying to erase you. That's unforgivable. I was crying too. It hurt so much, Sarah. You're my daughter, my only child. And you treated me like I was worthless. Like everything I did for you meant nothing. I know, and I can't undo that. But I want to try to make it right. I want to rebuild our relationship. If you'll let me. What about Brandon? The Morrisons? They're not going to be happy about this. Brandon and I have been talking a lot about his parents, about how they treat people, about the financial problems you exposed. He didn't know about most of it. His parents hid it from him, and he's been doing his own digging, found out his parents have been living on credit for years, that they're on the verge of bankruptcy, that everything about them is a lie. How's he handling that? Not well. He's angry, feels betrayed. He thought his parents were successful business people, didn't realize they were con artists, barely keeping up appearances. And he's been thinking about how they treated you, how Patricia orchestrated pushing you out. He says it's not okay, that you deserved better. That's good. But Sarah, you need to understand something. Going forward, I need boundaries. I need to be treated with respect, not just by Brandon's family, but by you. If you're going to be in my life, you need to actually value me, not just when it's convenient. I understand, and I will. I promise. We talked for hours that day. Really talked. For the first time in over a year. About everything that had happened. About how she'd changed. About the pressure she'd felt from Patricia. About her fear of not being good. Enough for Brandon's family. About how she'd lost herself trying to become someone she thought they wanted. Patricia kept telling me I needed to be more sophisticated, more polished. That I needed to leave behind my working-class background, and I believed her. I thought becoming one of them was what I needed to do to keep Brandon. Did you think Brandon would leave you if you stayed yourself? I don't know. Maybe. His parents made it seem like I needed to measure up, like I wasn't quite good enough as I was. And I was so in love with Brandon that I was willing to change everything to fit into his world. Sarah, if Brandon really loves you, he loves you for who you are, not for who his parents want you to be. And if he doesn't, then he's not the right person. I know that now. The therapist helped me see that, and Brandon has been really supportive. He's been standing up to his parents, setting boundaries, telling them they can't treat people the way they've been treating people. It's caused a lot of conflict, but he says it's necessary. Over the following months, Sarah and I slowly rebuilt our relationship. It wasn't easy. There was a lot of hurt to work through, a lot of trust to rebuild, but we were both committed to making it work, to being mother and daughter again. Not the way we were before, because too much had happened, but a new version, a more honest version. Sarah also started distancing herself from the Morrisons. She and Brandon moved into their own apartment, smaller than what they could have had with Morrison money. But theirs, independent. They stopped going to Morrison family events, stopped pretending everything was fine, stopped playing along with Patricia's need for appearances. Patricia didn't take it well, called Sarah repeatedly, accused her of being ungrateful, said she'd done so much for them and this was how they repaid her. Sarah held firm, said they needed space, needed to build their own life without Morrison. Interference. The Morrisons' financial situation got worse, just like I'd exposed at the wedding. Within 6 months, they had to close 3 of their dealerships, filed for bankruptcy, lost their fancy house, had to downsize dramatically. All their wealthy friends disappeared. Turned out when you're not actually rich, those friendships based on money evaporate. Richard tried to blame me, said I'd ruined their reputation, and that's why their business failed. But everyone knew the truth. Their business was failing long before I said anything. I just made public what was already happening. They'd been living a lie, and eventually lies catch up with you. Brandon cut off his parents completely after they refused to apologize to me. He said he couldn't have a relationship with people who'd treated his mother-in-law so terribly and wouldn't even acknowledge it was wrong. Patricia kept insisting she'd done nothing wrong. That she'd only been trying to help Sarah become better. That I was. The problem for being too sensitive. That lack of accountability sealed it. Brandon wanted nothing to do with them. Sarah supported his decision. They built a life together that wasn't based on Morrison money or status, based on their own earnings and their own choices. It was harder financially, but healthier, more authentic, more sustainable. A year after the wedding, Sarah invited me to dinner. At her apartment. She'd cooked, made my favorite meal. Lasagna with garlic bread. Simple, nothing fancy. We ate together and talked and laughed, and it felt like old times, like before Brandon, before the Morrisons, before everything got complicated. After dinner, Sarah handed me an envelope. I wanted to give you this. Inside was a check for $50,000. I looked at her confused. What is this? It's partial repayment. For everything you spent on me over the years. The $300,000 you mentioned at the wedding. I can't pay it all back right now. But I want to start. Because you're right. You sacrificed everything for me, and I took it for granted. This is me acknowledging that, and starting to make it right. I started crying. Sarah, you don't have to pay me back. I didn't spend that money expecting repayment. I spent it because you're my daughter, and I love you. I know, but I want to. Because it's not just about the money. It's about recognizing the value of what you did. Not taking it for granted. Showing you that I understand what you gave up for me. I hugged her, held her tight. My daughter, who'd been lost for a while but found her way back. Who'd learned hard lessons about what really matters. Who'd chosen authenticity over appearances. Who'd chosen me. I'm proud of you, I told her. For standing up to the Morrisons. For building your own life. For being strong enough to admit when you were wrong. That takes courage. I learned it from you, watching you stand up for yourself at the wedding. That was the bravest thing I've ever seen. You were terrified, but you did it anyway. You showed me what real strength looks like. That conversation healed something in me that had been broken. Not completely. Some scars don't fully fade, but enough. Enough that I could breathe again, could trust again, could believe that Sarah and I would be okay. 2 years after the wedding, Sarah got pregnant. She called me crying happy tears. Said she was scared but excited. Asked if I'd help her. Be there for her the way I'd always been there. I said yes without hesitation. Because that's what mothers do. We show up. Even when we've been hurt, even when trust has been broken, we show up for our children. I was in the delivery room when my grandson was born, held Sarah's hand through the contractions, coached her through the pushing, was the first person besides the doctor and Brandon to hold that tiny baby. She named him Robert. After my father, who died when Sarah was young, it was her way of honoring our family, of acknowledging where she came from. Being a grandmother changed everything again, made me realize how much I'd been missing, how much joy there was still to be had. Sarah and I were closer than we'd been in years. She called me every day, asked for advice, actually listened when I gave it, valued my experience. respected my input. Brandon was a good father, attentive, involved. Nothing like his own father. He'd learned from the Morrison disaster, seen what happened when parents prioritized image over substance. He was determined to be different, to raise Robert with real values, with an understanding that people matter more than things. The Morrisons tried to reach out when Robert was born, wanted to meet their grandson. Sarah and Brandon said no, not until they apologized. Not until they acknowledged how they'd treated me. Patricia refused. Said she'd done nothing wrong. So she didn't get to meet her grandson. That was her choice. Her pride over her family. 3 years after the wedding disaster, Sarah and Brandon invited me to a small ceremony. Just immediate family and close friends. They wanted to renew their vows, do it right this time. Without Morrison interference. Without the pressure to impress anyone. Just them committing to each other in a way that actually meant something. It was at a small venue. Maybe 40 people, simple decorations, homemade food, nothing fancy or expensive. Just authentic and meaningful. And this time, I sat in the front row. Walked Sarah down the aisle. Gave a toast. Was acknowledged and honored and included in every way I should have been the first time. During my toast, I looked at Sarah and Brandon and said, marriage is about partnership, about building a life together based on truth and respect and love. Not about money or status or impressing other people. I'm so proud of you both for figuring that out, for choosing each other over everything else, for building something real. Sarah was crying. Happy tears this time. She mouthed, I love you, and I mouthed it back. And I knew we were okay, really okay. The wounds had healed, the lessons had been learned. We'd come through the fire and survived. Looking back now, 5 years later, I don't regret what I did at that first wedding. Was it dramatic? Yes. Was it extreme? Absolutely. Did it blow up my relationship with my daughter? Temporarily. But it also forced hard conversations that needed to happen. It exposed truths that needed to be revealed. It set boundaries that needed to be set. If I hadn't stood up for myself that day, I'd still be invisible, still be erased, still be treated like I didn't matter. Sarah would still be living a lie, trying to be someone she's not to please people who didn't deserve it. The Morrisons would still be manipulating and controlling and treating people like garbage. My moment at that wedding changed everything. It was painful, messy, uncomfortable, but necessary. Sometimes you have to burn things down to rebuild them properly. Sometimes you have to fight back when people try to erase you. Sometimes standing up for yourself means causing a scene. And here's what I learned through all of it. Your value doesn't come from other people's approval. It doesn't come from fitting into someone else's idea of who you should be. It comes from knowing who you are and refusing to compromise that for anyone, even family, especially family. I also learned that sacrifices don't entitle you to anything. I didn't spend $300,000 on Sarah expecting repayment or gratitude. I did it because I loved her and wanted her to have opportunities. But I also deserved basic respect, basic acknowledgement, basic inclusion in her life. And when I wasn't getting that, I had every right to demand it. The other lesson? Sometimes the people who seem impressive aren't. The Morrisons looked wealthy and successful and put together, but it was all smoke and mirrors, all appearances with nothing substantive underneath. And lots of people are like that, performing success while drowning in debt and lies. Don't be intimidated by appearances. Most of the time, they're just that. Appearances. Would I do it again, knowing what I know now? Knowing it would temporarily destroy my relationship with Sarah? Yes, absolutely. Because that relationship needed to be destroyed to be rebuilt properly. We needed to hit rock bottom to understand what really mattered. And now we have something real, something honest, something built on actual respect instead of obligation. Sarah and I talk about that wedding sometimes. She says it was the worst and best day of her life. Worst because of the humiliation. Best because it woke her up, made her see what she was becoming. Gave her the push she needed to change course. She says if I hadn't done what I did, she'd probably still be trying to impress the Morrisons. Still be living a lie. Still be miserable. I tell her I'm sorry it had to happen that way. Sorry I couldn't find a gentler path, she says there. Wasn't one. That she wouldn't have listened if I'd tried to talk to her privately. That she needed the shock, needed the public wake-up call. Needed to see herself through other people's eyes to understand how far she'd drifted. These days, life is good. Simple but good. I'm a grandmother. Sarah and I are close. Brandon has become like a son to me. Robert is 3 years old and full of energy and joy. We have Sunday dinners at my house. The same traditions Sarah and I had when she was growing up. Full circle. Patricia and Richard moved to another state. Couldn't handle the shame of their bankruptcy and exposed lies in a town where they'd pretended to be important. I heard they're working regular jobs now. Managing someone else's car dealership. Living in a small apartment. The same kind of life they looked down on for so long. Karma. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if I'd stayed silent. If I'd accepted being erased. Sat at that kitchen table and watched Patricia take credit for everything. Watched Sarah marry into a family of con artists. Watched my daughter lose herself completely, trying to be someone she's not, and I'm grateful I didn't. Grateful. I had the courage to stand up even though it was terrifying. Because here's the truth. Standing up for yourself is terrifying. Especially when it means confronting the people you love. When it means causing a scene. When it means risking relationships. But sometimes it's necessary. Sometimes being quiet and accepting mistreatment is more dangerous than speaking up. Sometimes you have to be willing to lose everything to save what really matters. I got kicked out of my daughter's wedding. Or rather, I kicked myself out by refusing to be invisible anymore. By demanding to be seen and heard and respected. And it turned into a victory. Not immediately, not easily, but eventually, because I fought back. I refused to accept being treated as less than. I stood up for my value, even when everyone told me to sit down. And 5 years later, I'm still standing, stronger than before, with relationships rebuilt on honest foundations, with a daughter who truly sees me, with a grandson who will grow up knowing his grandmother's strength, with peace knowing I didn't let people erase me. That's the victory. Not revenge, not humiliation, not destruction, but survival, authenticity, self-respect, the knowledge that when push came to shove, I didn't back down. I fought for myself. And I won. So to anyone else dealing with being pushed aside, being erased, being treated like you don't matter by the people who should love you most, I say this: stand up, fight back, refuse to be invisible. Yes, it will be hard. Yes, it might blow up your relationships. Yes, people will call you inappropriate and dramatic and wrong. But you'll know the truth. You'll know you respected yourself enough to demand respect from others. And sometimes that's all that matters. Not whether people approve, not whether you kept the peace, but whether you stood up for yourself when it counted. Whether you refused to be diminished. Whether you fought for your value, even when everyone told you to accept less. I did. And I'd do it again in a heartbeat. Subscribe for more real stories like this.